One of the most nerve-wracking experiences in real estate is to fall behind on a loan. We're talking big bucks here. Millions of dollars of investor money, or your own money for that matter, could be at risk. Now, there isn't always a good solution for a distressed loan, but the reality is that if an owner spends some time up front negotiating some important details in their loan documents, they could mitigate a good amount of risk and potentially slow the effects of financial distress on their property. Unfortunately, hindsight is 20/20, but here are some things to think about when negotiating loan documents for future deals you may be considering. Let's start with the promissory note. Many inexperienced borrowers, and unfortunately their inexperienced attorneys, just look at a few key factors in the note: the loan amount, the interest rate, the amortization, the prepayment penalty, and the maturity date. More experienced borrowers will look at many other factors. For today, let's start with the most obvious. Perhaps the most significant is the default interest rate, or the default rate. The default rate is the applicable interest rate on a loan after the occurrence of an event of default. Obviously, the default rate is higher than the contract rate, the non-default rate. Lenders will include a default interest rate in the note to act as a deterrent against missing payments or committing other defaults. An added benefit of including a default rate is that the loan will be more attractive to buyers of non-performing debt, or NPLs, and enable them to pay a higher percentage of the principal balance of the loan. The default interest rate can vary depending on the legal limit of the state, could depend on the lender, frankly, depending on whatever the lender can get away with in many cases. In my experience, I've seen default rates as high as 25% and as low as 3% above the contract rate. Many borrowers look past the default interest rate and don't even bother to try to negotiate it. The reason for that is twofold. Number one, they have a very positive outlook and they think that they'll never be in default, so they think it's just irrelevant. Number two is they don't want the lender to think that they're concerned that they may default, and so rather than have the lender reject their loan, which that just may be something in their head that they're concerned that'll happen, so what they do is they just swallow hard and they sign. Having said that, not negotiating the default interest rate down to something more reasonable can lead to disastrous results. For example, on a $1 million loan with a contract interest rate of 4%, the interest would equal $40,000 a year. That same loan at the default rate of 24% comes to $240,000 a year. Your equity can erode pretty darn quick at that kind of interest. Negotiating it down to, say, 5% above contract interest or 9% would mean that the max accrual would be $90,000 a year. My suggestion is to hire competent counsel and do your best to negotiate down the default interest rate at the outset of the loan to something more manageable in the unlikely scenario that you can't make your monthly payments. And while nobody expects to default, as everyone knows, stuff happens. Like, for example, a global pandemic shutting down the economy for 12 months or something like that. I'm Mendy Pollack, managing member of Watermark Capital Partners. We provide foreclosure bailout capital, we buy distressed commercial real estate, and non-performing debt. Comment below or reach out to discuss any opportunities or situations that I can help with. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day.